Hey everybody, Mr. G here. Let's talk about the interaction of Git and GitHub. All right. Uh, so these features are really great locally when we're using them in Git, but they gain even more power when we also use them with GitHub because GitHub brings the internet into play. It brings the possibility of collaboration. So, if you recall, our regular command to send our work to GitHub is git push origin main. If we kind of break this down, git push is the base command. Origin refers to the place on GitHub where we are storing the project. This is typically called the remote. Really, it's just a link to the repository on GitHub. In main actually refers to the branch we're pushing. Before now, we didn't really have branches, so main was the only branch, and it made sense that main would be the information we want to push. So now we're going to have to be a little more careful because if you're doing work in a branch and you git push origin main, the information in your branch will not make it onto GitHub. And so if you're trying to work from a different location later, you're at school, now you're at home, that information is not going to be available. So it's something you're going to have to keep an eye out for. So let's first talk about pushing to other branches. So we're kind of going back to an instance kind of like our previous one. This diagram shows a state of the sample repository. In this repository, we had made 3 commits. And then we made a new branch called testing, moved over the new branch, made a 4th commit on the new branch testing, but not on main. So there's kind of a lot going on here. So maybe to help demonstrate this, I'll first push origin main so that everything's up to date. And I'm going to do a git branch testing. I'm going to do git checkout testing. So we move over to testing. I'm going to delete this test.py file. We don't want it anymore. So we're going to remove it. And I'm going to add dot git commit removed hello world, and then git push origin testing is what we're going to do. So we want the information in the testing branch to end up in GitHub, and in order to do that, we need to make very clear that the information we want to run wants to send the testing information up. If I were to git push origin main right now, just make sure everything's up to date, and then go and look at this repository, I'll notice the test.py file is there. Even though I made a commit in the testing branch, that information has not made it to GitHub because I only pushed main. So the difference that comes up here is that I am going to specifically want to push the information from this branch to GitHub. So I'm going to do git push origin testing. And it's actually noting here, this was a new branch. GitHub now knows that the branch testing exists. And so GitHub should now have the same information that our local repository does because we've sent all the most recent branches to it. You will notice something though. If I refresh here, I still see test.py, and you're actually noticing testing has recent pushes less than a minute ago. It's letting you know that testing is something going on. For your awareness, when you're trying to work with GitHub, if you ever want to look at the different branches and the different versions available from those branches, we have a little button here. So this button that says main, if you click on it, will show you all of the branches currently being worked on or currently available in this repository. So here it says main is the default. That's a classic. But I could click on testing and view this version. And you'll notice that in this version, the test.py file has disappeared. So now GitHub is able to show us the most recent information from the testing branch. And now maybe for our kind of clarity here, I'll do the same thing we did earlier. I'm going to check out back to main. I'm going to merge the testing branch in. And I'm going to push, or before I push main, I'm going to git branch -d testing. I'm going to delete the testing branch. And I'm going to push origin main because main has all the information that we want on it. So now if I was to refresh GitHub, this branch is up to date with main. So it's actually letting us know that even though we're looking at the testing branch right now, all of this information has been updated into the main. And so if I look here, it's true, everything is here. And our branch is still a little bit visible, but it specifically lets us know this is up to date. It's already been moved in, all the information has been merged. So this is an interaction to be aware of between Git and GitHub. We need to be very particular about how we push information from our repository to GitHub if we want all of our most recent information on different branches to be available. So it's just something to keep in mind. These have been kind of simpler examples of the interaction between Git and branching, and even GitHub. In the next section, divergent branching, we're going to kind of get into the weeds and look at a particular case of branching called divergent branching that happens more often than you'd expect, and it's good to understand the systems at play. So in the next section, we're going to talk about divergent branches.